Thanks everyone for joining us on this webinar. It's Educating the Marketing Industry for Tomorrow and Beyond COVID-19. My name is Darren Woolley from Trinity P3. And before we get started, just like to do some housekeeping. First of all, we're planning to have this webinar run for 1 hour and finish at 1 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. You can ask questions at any time, but we will ask you to do that through the Q&A function, which you'll find at the base of the screen that you're looking on in Zoom. And also we're recording this session for future use. So as a registrant, you'll be getting an email in the next 24 hours with a link to be able to see this video. Now, what I'd like to do is first of all, introduce our panel. We have Ms. Sarah Ryan, who is Integrated Insights Director from Campbell, Arnott, Australia. She is also on the committee for the Capabilities and Advisories Group of the Australian Association of National Advertisers. We also have Dr. Nicole Hartley, MBA Program Director at the University of Queensland and a marketing academic. We have Mr. David Reid, Lecturer in Advertising at Swinburne University of Technology, and Mr. Peter Horgan, CEO of Omnicom Media Group Australia and New Zealand, and also the Chair of the Media Federation of Australia and on the board of the Australian Association of National Advertisers. Welcome, panel.
Thank you.
So, the topic we're discussing today is an interesting one because it's something that's actually been an issue for quite a while, and that's been driven by technology. How do we train people to be ready to work in the marketing professions, as broad as that is, when technology seems to be changing marketing and the way it's practiced, almost on a yearly, annual, monthly, or even weekly basis in some cases? This is the task that we put in the hands of universities and tertiary institutions, not just here in Australia, but around the world, to actually train the next generation of marketers. Well, as we've seen with the global disruption caused by COVID-19, how do we know what skill sets we'll need in the future, let alone what we'll need next year or next week? Because the one thing that COVID-19 has proven to us is that, you know, what is constant in marketing is the fact that it is constantly changing. And so this panel of experts or subject matter experts being gathered together. And look, before I go on, I do want to thank David Reid, because if it wasn't for David reaching out and posing this question, we wouldn't be doing this webinar. So thanks, David.
I think it's a very important time to actually have this discussion. Terrific.
So what we're going to do is each of the speakers is going to speak for around 5 minutes on their perspective. And as you can tell, we've got from marketing and from advertising and from two very excellent tertiary institutions who are producing the marketers of tomorrow, and also in the case of Nicole, training the marketers as well with her the MBA program at University of Queensland, so postgraduate training as well. So let's start, Sarah. What I'd like to do is start with you.
Right.
And if you would mind taking us through, from your perspective, what are the needs of the industry in regards to training the marketers of tomorrow?
Great. Thanks, everyone. And thanks, Darren. So I know Darren mentioned to you that I'm the Integrated Insights Director at Campbell Arnott. I'm fairly new to Insights, but throughout my career, I've worked across Coca-Cola, Unilever and Arnott in a range of different marketing roles. And in addition to this, I've got a real passion for developing the next generation of marketeers. So I've been responsible for leading the marketing capability programs at both Arnott and Unilever before that. So this topic today is one that I'm really passionate about. And I've actually explored it to an extent in developing marketing capability programs across a range of different organisations now. So on the question then, Darren, of what skills are brands and agencies looking for in graduates, I believe that the same fundamental set of skills and behaviours that have been relevant for marketeers forever will be the ones that will be relevant into the future. But what has evolved and is going to continue to evolve is the way that marketeers need to deliver against those skills, the context that they're working in, and the tools that they have at their disposal. At Arnott, we've got a marketing capability program that calls out the core skills our team needs to excel and keep them relevant into the future. And they're framed around 5 areas, which are insights into action, brand and customer strategy, brand and customer planning and delivery, innovation, and integrated connections. There's nothing really groundbreaking about those 5 areas. They're really the areas that form the basis of most marketing capability models in one way or another. But as marketeers, I believe that we rely on a forward view of trends to determine what's going to prepare us to best meet our customers' needs into the future. And I think it's that same approach that we need to use as professionals in preparing our teams and our marketing graduates to be relevant into the future. So in our Arnott's model in particular, we've taken a view of the trends that are likely to affect our industry over the next 5 years. And we've built this into our capability model as evolving trends and things that will be evolving under each of the skills in our capability model. And we need to either buy or build these skills in our team to make sure that we're competitive into the future. So I wanted to just touch on a couple of those trend areas to give you a feel for the types of things we're anticipating. I don't think any of them are going to be a surprise to you. I guess the first one is in the area of insight. So we've got so many new and evolving sources of insight to draw on as marketeers today. We can access a whole range of internal and external data that will help us make decisions. And this is available daily and provides actionable insight on almost that regularity. So the amount of data then we have at our disposal just forces our hand that we have no choice but to leverage technology to access and use that insight into the future. I believe marketers still need that fundamental skill of taking information and then knowing how to act on it, to draw the insight out and form a plan of action. But more and more, they need to know how to work with the technology platform to be able to access the information, and also what questions they need the technology to help them answer. The second area is in the area of channels. So the channels through which we sell our goods and services to our customers is going to continue to evolve into the future. And an obvious trend here is the growth of the online environment. But new store formats in face-to-face retail also continue to evolve. And as marketers, we're going to need to know how to plan for and execute in each environment. The third area is in integrated connections. So there are so many new and evolving ways to reach our customers and to influence their purchase decisions. We know that media landscape has exploded and with it new ways to reach and target our customers. So that's a huge trend that we need to prepare our marketeers to face into. And the last area is really the behaviours. So while the same behaviours are going to be relevant, our teams are going to need the ability to better embrace change, complexity, and ambiguity. They need to be able to create a learning environment and know how to do test and learns. They need to be able to navigate an organisation that's evolving as well. And they need to be able to communicate and lead teams virtually as well. So I don't believe that COVID's really changed any of those trends as we've reviewed them, but I do believe that's accelerated some of them that were evolving anyway. So a couple of examples there. During lockdown, we've been forced to cancel a lot of face-to-face research that was planned and test different ways of sourcing consumer opinions and input into our decision-making. We know that e-commerce has grown as well during this phase. So customers who haven't needed to bank or shop online are doing it for the first time often. And they've been forced to do that. I know in the latest week, according to Play Market Research, 25% of Aussies have claimed that they've shopped online rather than in store. And some people are doing that for entertainment because they're bored, stuck at home. But there are a percentage of people who are finding this skill for the first time, and they're going to find it convenient and stick with it. And we've seen that in China, where they've been out of lockdown for some time, but online shopping continues to be at about 15% above pre-COVID levels. We've seen growth in digital media. So we know consumers have looked at online news, streaming services, social media for news and entertainment. And like e-commerce, a lot of this could be circumstantial, but it's likely to accelerate some trends that were growing anyway. And from a behavioural perspective, for sure, this has highlighted the need for marketeers to, more than ever, be able to embrace change and ambiguity. We've seen teams of marketeers needing to understand those really fast evolving consumer mindsets and turn their plans on a dime to respond to that and meet their needs. The need also to be able to communicate, lead and drive direction remotely, as we've all been working from home, has been more critical than ever. So I believe that we all need to review these trends regularly. I think at the moment in a COVID world, it's weekly, really. We need to examine what's changing. We need to dust off that crystal ball and build those evolving skills and behaviours into our capability programs and our university courses to ensure that we've got teams and graduates are best equipped to deliver against the skills that are going to be required of them in the future. Final thought from me, somewhat controversially, and I'll be interested to see how my university panellists react. But we know that most businesses in this market have got a really keen eye to cost and efficiency, and marketing is a significant cost centre. We want to make sure that we continue to deliver strong return on investment on our marketing dollars. So as a result, most marketing teams are fairly lean, and every team member needs to own their own work streams and deliver a return. And most organisations don't have a lot of time to invest in developing new graduates to the point that they can contribute in a business. So I believe that universities need to focus on developing graduates who have a thorough understanding of the fundamental skills and behaviours required of marketeers, but they also have to have an appreciation of the context and tools that might be available to them when they first step into a business. They also need to be prepared to contribute and deliver outcomes from day one as well. So they need to know how to lead projects, how to navigate an organisation, and they need to know who and where to go to for help when they need it. As a further challenge, I think it would be even better if they were bringing to the table some new emerging skill sets, best practice and new ways of attacking problems. I know that's asking a lot of our universities and our graduates, but I believe this is how we can all contribute to ensuring that our next generation of marketeers is world-class and potentially even world-beating.
Fantastic. Thanks, Sarah. And look, and a great view from inside a working organisation that relies heavily on marketing to drive sales and performance. So next, I'd like to hand over to Nicole. Especially Nicole, it'll be interesting to get your perspective with a marketing academic base, but also now running an MBA course, because a postgraduate means actually refining and building on skills for people that are already working, doesn't it?
It certainly does, yes, Darren. And I've just loved listening to Sarah just then. I think it's always wonderful to listen to industry and get the insights from industry and see what's relevant to them. And I think it's rewarding when I'm sitting here nodding the whole way going, yes, this is exactly what we should be doing. And hopefully that's what we're delivering on in so many ways. So I'm hoping I can sort of talk through some thinking that I've been doing recently and how we're kind of approaching what we do, not just at UQ, but what I think a good marketing program or a good education for our marketers should be. First of all, thank you, Darren, for getting me involved in this panel. It's been fantastic. I think it's a very relevant topic, and I think it's very important for us to be talking about this right now, based on a lot of the information that even Sarah was just raising just then about return on investment for what marketers do out in the field. Let's just set the context for this. You know, we're in the middle right now of disruption that's coming from 3 mega trends. It's not just what COVID-19 is doing to us. I mean, as Darren said at the start, it's also that we've been faced with increased adoption of technology. So we've got digitalization as the first mega trend that's been disrupting us for quite a while now, and how we've been responding to that. And in marketing, in a lot of ways, it's how we actually prepared for automation in so many different ways, and how does it change business models, etc., for those people that we're marketing for. Secondly, we have the social impacts of what we're seeing with COVID coming through, and this global health crisis, which has effects on ourselves, on our families. It speaks to our need for greater safety and well-being, which really impacts the way that we interact with each other, and a lot of the needs that we're seeing coming through from customers. The third mega trend is the ongoing one now that we'll be facing a little bit more of as we sort of coming through the crisis, or this first wave of the crisis, and experiencing this global economic crisis. And that's really going to change the way that we work, change the way we do business, with some business folding, other businesses thinking about innovative practices. So when you meld that all together, you know, we're operating in a space now where none of us alive on the panel right now have ever sort of experienced this combination of forces that is impacting not only just education and how we deliver and sort of educate our graduates, but, you know, business more holistically. And in that sense, we really don't know what the future holds. We honestly don't. So the question of how does an educational institute best prepare graduates for the unknown is a pretty big question. But when I think about this, I've sort of broken it down into 3 key thoughts. The first, I think, you know, a marketing degree that's going to serve you best right now, and it's wonderful that I'm kind of agreeing with what Sarah was saying, is that, you know, it's got to get the fundamentals right. Global pandemic has really driven home for us that human behavior is at the center of everything that we do. It's driving everything. So we can see from what how the pandemic has actually impacted us, that we're changing the way that we consume. So now we're seeing different ways, you know, so it's low touch environments where we might be going curbside to get our deliveries, and we're getting things delivered to us and rather being out and about. We're a lot more digital options. You know, Sarah's talking to the fact that a lot more people have picked up online shopping, me included. Laggard, I know, but getting there. So, you know, increased streaming, telemedicine is going ballistic. So we've also changed what we're consuming. So we're consuming, you know, not so much more holidays and hotel bookings, but we're consuming different types of products now and more regularly. And, you know, our spending patterns as well. So we're spending more in, you know, different areas such as, you know, I think push bikes went through the roof, computer monitors went through the roof. So we're seeing all of these changes in trends, and they're predicting to be sort of ongoing throughout the next 3, 6 months, 12 months, you know, into the next decade. So I think the underlining thing under all of this is it's bound around consumer behavior. Okay, how are we responding to these impacts upon us? And that's really going to drive the way that markets are focused and businesses are focused, and what marketers have to actually respond to. And I think this is it's not new, it's in line with what we've been looking at for projections around, you know, what trends are going to be happening in marketing over the next 5 to 10 years. A lot of them are very centric to customer insights. So you're looking at things such as customer retention, customer experience, and customer lifetime value. And these things are just at the core. So if you're getting fundamentals right, that is around understanding the customer experience and, you know, and really getting the key insights of your customers, then the program, you know, is a strong program. Second, layered over the top of this is the need for our graduates to really understand the technology that they can use in order to actually dig into those insights. So, you know, it's technology, different platforms that they're using, automated platforms, market intelligence. So, you know, predicted in demand skills are things around data and analyst, data visualizations, CX, UX, AI and machine learning. These are all things that should be embedded into programs where you have the opportunity to actually engage with the technology, and more importantly, to understand the technology. And I think Sarah said a really nice thing in terms of asking the right questions of the technology, because that's when you're actually really using that technology well to get the insights you need to make the decisions that you need to make. The third thing that I've thought about is really not so much about the content that we might put into our programs, because we can have really good fundamentals that ground you, layer it with the technology that you need to utilize in order to get to those fundamentals. But it's really about how we sort of engage in the learning process with our students. So as marketers, we're constantly acting, okay? We're constantly promoting products, we're constantly driving sales, connecting with customers. And for our graduates to get on the ground and be able to act and make a contribution, as Sarah was talking about, it's really about giving them the confidence to be able to do that. So it's about being able to make a good decision in a time when you don't know what the right decision actually is. So they can certainly turn to AI and machine learning and look at data and try to analyze that and make inferences from it. But the landscape's shifting so much, and it will be continually shifting into the foreseeable future. You know, it's about giving someone the confidence through uncertainty and ambiguity to actually make the best decision that they possibly can, knowing that it might be wrong, but at the time it was a decision that they made, and this is how we've moved the business forward. So as educators, the way that we provide that confidence, I think, is through experiential learning. It's about not just sitting in a classroom and absorbing these frameworks and models and sort of learning inactively. It's about actually working with industry and alongside industry, having them come into the classroom, having our students go to industry and actually work on live projects with industry and get that sort of understanding of how they actually implement the skills that they're learning, but also then, as Sarah pointed out too, the fact of actually being able to navigate that organisations or getting exposure to organisations and how they work, and take those learnings and be able to have, sort of have the attributes that we want from marketing graduates. So yes, we achieve this basically by the confidence that we give our students. We're really achieving this by working with industry. In formulating our programs here at UQ, and I'm sure other universities do it as well, we have we have industry advisory panels. So it's representatives from different people from industry that come in and they actually advise us on a regular basis as to what's the challenges that you're facing right now. So what are the things that, if you wanted a marketing graduate to walk on the floor tomorrow, what would that person need to look like? What were the skill sets that is going to best serve your organization and best serve that person to have a really fulfilling role and for them to make an impact? And I think that's critically important, that working with and alongside industry and constantly in consultation with industry to build confidence and then have graduates that are actually going to make that impact at the end.
Fantastic. Thanks, Nicole. Terrific insight, and great to see that alignment between you and Sarah. But Peter, you have a unique perspective of the panel because you're working and have managed quite a sizable media agency group in Omnicom Media Group. You're a major employer in Australia of talented people. It'd be interesting from your perspective as to what is the expectation that you have as an employer of what people would be coming to you, graduates would be coming to you with. So, Peter?
Thanks, Darren. I'll cover skills in a second, but I think the first thing we'd love to see is graduates who have an understanding of why they want to get into agency landscape. Why would anyone want to be an agency employee? Because fundamentally it's a business that aggregates talent. As Sarah was saying in her section, marketers are under duress too often, and we'll come to this in a second. It's seen as a cost center, and it's tough to get sign-off for staff. So agencies really survive or perish on the basis of attracting a collective of tough to source and tough to train talent. And for us, universities play a critical role in preparing that entry level or grad level base from which we're in a position to give on-the-job training and help people decide which way they want their careers going. I think, and fundamentally, going into an agency, it's a different mindset to going into, say, a corporate marketing role. Agencies are, of course, corporations in their own right, and many are multinationals, but there tends to be a different culture that exists in agencies that potentially is appealing appealing to a certain type of person and potentially abhorrent to another kind of person. So it's, you know, you see a lot of industry verticals. You'll have exposure across different facets of industry. You know, on the negative, you may be shouted at. You work in a service business, and it is incumbent upon you to deliver for those clients. Otherwise, you won't retain those clients. But fundamentally, a service mindset going into this side of the industry, and a hunger or an inquisitiveness whereby your interest, that you can cope with slightly less structure, but you're drawn to the variety of tasks of industry verticals that you'll be exposed to, and also an appetite for the kind of chaos that comes with a discipline that is changing so fast even the disruptors within this sector are being disrupted themselves, and that pace of change is accelerating, if anything. So what do we ask for in that slightly confronting but potentially exciting sort of industry segment that I'm describing? I think core software skills. Nicole touched on this before. That, you know, we don't expect people to come into our industry with an understanding of ad tech, martech platforms. As Sarah, I think you touched on it as well. You know, there's only so much time in the 3-4 years of an undergrad program of what can be focused on and what can be retained as well, from understanding through to actually turning up with your satchel under your arm at your first day of work, and what you're going to bring. But an understanding of the landscape of platforms, of where different platforms fit in, and how they connect is enormously helpful. And then, this is going to sound horribly patronizing, basic Office, Microsoft Office skills. Again, there's quite a diversity of competency that we see, but it is so fundamental to so many parts of our world. Then I'll break it into media fundamentals, so, you know, understanding targeting, understanding custom audiences, and how media really is in the business of audience segmentation and audience valuation, and then making a decision about how budgets are deployed for paid media, or emphasis or owned assets are deployed for owned and earned. And then I'd come back to landscape again. Individuals coming out of universities who really understand the media landscape of paid media channels, but also the emerging world of e-commerce, marketing technology, and how we as a business can reach and influence consumers. Third area, and this is possibly the most important, we spend most of our lives and most of our value proposition talking to marketers. So an understanding of marketing fundamentals, I think is key. I caution myself in referencing the ex-academic Mark Ritson but he has a point and he rails against celebrity marketers in needing to reinvent the fundamentals at every iteration of change that comes through. But understanding of brand and response, and how you manage the interplay between those two, and give a proportionate focus towards the brand arena, a deep understanding of consumer journey and how that maps out. And probably the most important thing he said is a marketing discipline that feels competent and empowered to talk to the finance function within industry, and to be able to make a case, a business case. And Nicole, this will be a passion point of yours with postgrad MBAs, and how marketers can thrive in the corporate structure, and a discipline that has been under some duress, and how agencies, but importantly, universities can help that discipline make a case with confidence to a CFO for why investment in brand, investment in longer term metrics is critical for the long-term survival of those businesses. And I'll finish off with the softer skills, which are so important to us, because we will do so much on the job training. The ability to communicate, even with softer skills training in industry, there is a small proportion of I'll probably get myself into trouble here, a small proportion of our people throughout agency and client side that can truly communicate and can actually write. So writing skills, the ability to write, put a presentation together, carry an argument is lacking even for experienced people, and a head start for individuals coming out of university would be a huge springboard into a fast track in our industry. And I think that'll cover me.
Thanks, Peter. That's a terrific shopping list there. I'm just wondering, David, in preparing people to be job ready, how do you possibly cover a shopping list that is required? Especially advertising is quite different, even though it's part of marketing, it's quite different to the core.
Yeah, well, where advertising sits is quite political at a university, so that's probably a separate conversation another day. But yeah, I teach into undergraduate advertising program at Swinburne, so it's slightly different, obviously, to what Nicole's doing at postgraduate level. We sort of see our students, we place huge emphasis on ensuring that our students go into industry. So the likes of Omnicom and all the other businesses in that sector. I'm very agency focused as opposed to what we call client focused. So we're less focused on the marketing side, I suppose. Maybe we need to open that up a little bit more. Look, I'll just go through the sort of notes and thoughts that I have. Mine's probably a little bit more of a philosophical approach, so just bear with me in my thinking. So because I think it's a really important discussion. I think COVID-19 has brought it to the head. So, I thank you very much, Darren, for facilitating and hosting this. So I think we all understand that knowledge is critical, and knowledge is particularly important for the marketers of tomorrow, wherever they sit, wherever they stand, whether they're client side or agency side. So we need to recognise the value and the importance of learning. But this comes from a number of different areas. And if we think about it, it doesn't necessarily have to come from a university. I mean, I sit at a university, but I think we need to respect that education or knowledge can be taught elsewhere. So historically, in agency land, people used to start at the bottom. They used to start in the mailroom when that existed. Of course, that's a few decades ago now. But if we think about educational landscape at the moment, we do have TAFEs. So there is the opportunity for young people to be educated at TAFE level as opposed to university level. Of course, I think the university offers more depth of understanding, depth of knowledge. So I'm probably a little bit biased, but I also need to respect that. So that's where students go, or people when they're undertaking learning. If we look at the history of marketing education, it's actually been around in Australia for like 100 years. University of Melbourne, I think, is credited as originating tertiary level education in marketing. But if we look at advertising education, which is obviously, I agree, it's a subsector of marketing. That sort of started in the 1960s at the likes of diploma levels at places like Swinburne. And degrees came around through, I think we have to credit that to QUT. They were, I think, one of the first institutions to bring in a tertiary level degree in advertising. So that's the history and the context. We have a lot of training, a lot of knowledge, and a lot of opportunities, a lot of different routes into gaining knowledge or gaining a foundation. But if we fast forward to 2020, where are we now? If we review that quality of education, what we're doing, the undergraduate degrees primarily, which is where I'm coming from, I think there's a lot of questions, and I think all of the panelists today probably touched on them as well. And for me, it's in terms of an educator, it's about currency of practice. And I'm probably going to put myself in a little bit of a hot seat by saying this, but I think our curriculum is dated. And as much as we work really hard on it, I think it's, the technology that's unfolding in industry ahead of us is sort of an advance of the curriculum that we're teaching. And I think that's really difficult for us to keep up with. And I think that there's a bigger picture there, and that's about agility. But I'll touch on that in a minute. And I think everyone else has touched on this. There's clear and evident gaps in knowledge. Certainly, I think in the students we're putting out, and that's particularly around the use and the application of technology, and that's automation and all those sorts of areas. I guess the bigger question here is: should we be teaching that, or should we rely on the likes of Omnicom and all the clients in industry to have their own client-based training programs? I think that's possibly an interesting question to have. So now we have COVID-19. We have sort of a stop, don't we? We have this place where we're stuck at home, industry stuck at home. Everyone's working from home. Although luckily enough, Australia's in a much more positive place. But everyone's impacted. The social cultural impact is enormous. And we've got to be honest. The elephant in the room is the recession. The recession is coming. Or if it's not here now, it's sort of coming very quickly. So the next year, 2-3 years, I think are going to be difficult. They're going to be challenging for all of us in education and for those of us in industry. And I was just speaking on a conference last night in Europe as part of ECA, which is sort of a European education leverage. And they were talking about how recessions are sharp. And that was an important part of how we exist. That is the sharpness to how we operate in business, and possibly also that can feed into how we operate in education. I think from an educational perspective, we're facing redundancy. So we're streamlining how we teach and what we teach, and because of that, I think we need to think about different methods and different approaches. We're constantly facing Zoom fatigue and lots of online educational fatigue. It's not only Zoom, we're using lots of different what we call learning management systems. But ultimately, I think we need to see this as an opportunity. I'm always trying to be positive about everything. And I think it's an opportunity to change education for the better. So what does that mean? I think it really means innovation. And to me, that's all about deeper knowledge, a deeper understanding of industry practice, and greater currency. So we need to be closer to industry. At a very simple level, and I think Nicole touched on this, which she talked about experiential projects or experiential learning. And I think that's a critical thing. We need to think about experiential learning in a much broader way. I call it experiential learning on steroids. We could be doing simple things. We could be doing things like leveraging peer networks. We need to do much more of that. Maybe we need to also be thinking about the value of importance of apprenticeships. And I know this in a way sits maybe outside of university education, but I think they're important. And maybe it's an opportunity to bring in a cohort of people to industry that wouldn't originally or historically had that opportunity. And we still need to think about case-based learning. And I know there's a problem with some approaches to case-based learning, but what we need to do is we just need to make them current. So we need to think about case-based learning, which has currency in it and its pedagogy. So how I define this and how I summarize this is, I think it's industry-based education. It's a terminology I think it's been around for a lot. But how I see the future, where I see the opportunity, is transitioning academic education for the broader, and I see it as advertising, marketing, and communication industry. I see the opportunity as transitioning that physically to industry. And I think there's an opportunity where we can engage in a much deeper level. How we work that out, I don't know, but I'm happy to have that conversation. Thank you.
That's great, David. Thank you very much. Sarah, that plays to the capabilities advisory group at the AANA is
great.
Definitely taking on the responsibility of furthering education within the industry, isn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, we're planning lots of capability for those who are new to organisations to really skill them up while they're on their job. And I think it all is more relevant when they're doing that work, working on a project and helping them deliver against their next target.
So if the purpose of education is to encourage curiosity and inquiry, we're doing really well, because there's already 3 questions from the group. So let's address those first. The first one is, and specifically, Nicole, this was based on something that you said, which, other than trust in technology and trust in one's own ability to use technology, what other factors would contribute to the transition to higher usage of technology, both in education and in the workplace?
Certainly, it's a good question, and trust is a critical aspect of that, I think. But the other thing is value. I think, you've got to look at, does the technology provide value? And the value is either to the organisation and or customers, or it's one or the other. But it is something that does add value. We see technology a lot of the times being embedded because we're thinking, oh, everyone's doing automation. Let's get that automated platform and let it do something, because that's what all the other big brands are doing. But if that takes away some element of what is valuable to you as an organisation or is valuable to your customers, then it's erroneously used. So I think it's, looking at what's the value of that technology, and then really thinking about, what are we trying to achieve? What is going to be best for our stakeholders, whoever they are? So whether it is our customers and our board, or whoever it is, in terms of return on investment. And looking at technology from that aspect, gaining the skills then to use that technology. And I guess that's part of our remit in both industry as well as in education practice, is to provide access and opportunities for people to actually have access to the technology and utilize it, see its functionality, see where, the border, how far we can push things and where the borders are with technology, and feeling au fait with technology. I mean, we've got a new generation coming through that are going to be way more technology literate than any of us probably on the panel at the moment. Sorry, everybody, but that's probably the way it is. The dice are rolling. So this question probably won't be very relevant in the near future. But the question will be, is the technology useful? Is it providing value?
Okay, thanks for that. Anyone, David, did you want to add to that?
No, I absolutely agree. And but there's probably a complication now for us in higher ed is one of cost and how we implement the learning around the cost factor of actually bringing in the technology. So we don't necessarily have the systems in place, in our higher educational environment to teach those appropriate technical skills that you're really in need of, Peter and Sarah. You know what I mean? And I'm just wondering, that's why in my brain, in terms of advancing that technical knowledge at a bare minimum, is we just need to give you those students and place them in your business and come up with this new hybrid model where they're learning technology but as part of their education, and there will be cost savings to that, and we need to be thinking about that.
Partnering with the tech firms, right? So you can see there's these new models that are being proposed in the US where, Microsoft, so it becomes a new Microsoft Harvard degree. So it's kind of like looking at how we can partner with tech as well to provide opportunities to.
I like that idea.
I know, it sounds good. I'd go for it.
So hopefully they'll actually teach them how to use Microsoft Office, and would be happy with that.
Teams
But
Apologies for that one again.
There's a question for Sarah and Peter. You mentioned what you want from graduates. What skills do you typically find lacking in graduates? Peter, you did mention presentation skills, but are there any others? Sarah, do you want? Oh, Peter, you go first.
I think we miss communication skills. I think listening as well as a soft skill is missing. It's missing across industry, but it's again it could be something that is where people come out of university with better skills and better techniques to absorb information and also work in teams where you are able to take contributions from other team members and then build in a collaborative and positive way. Project management, problem solving. I think these are the areas where we get great benefit from universities having graduates that are better equipped. I think in nimbleness as well. We talk about nimbleness and everything. Of course, is that's almost de rigueur, the way things are heading. But I think the way courses, and I know the Media Federation and Omnicom, David, you especially have lent into this, the difficulty of getting course changes into curriculum within the tertiary structures and getting those approved. You know, for an industry that's moving so quickly, and I know it's a common frustration of all of us. And I think you're right. The only way to solve for it, if you're not going to be able to fundamentally replumb university approval structures, is to embed people in either apprentice or intern models where they're getting their hands on the tools.
Yeah, look, just quickly on that, I think academic rigor and academic process is important, but it's it's a historical model, and it works. So it's proven to work over decades, and we're stuck with a new version of that in terms of approvals and processes. I'm not quite sure in my head. We need to bring in a fast track model. I don't know if you do that at University of Queensland, Nicole, but in terms of developing new programs, has a fast-track internal approval process. So if you think of universities, we're very hierarchical. You know, we're very steep layers of approvals, and there's many steps, and that slows everything down. But I guess we just need to be more agile in that space. That's my hope and my wish. I'm just wondering, Nicole, if you have a fast-track process at University of Queensland.
We don't as of yet. So the agility, so you need to build in the agility in different ways, right? So I think that one of the key things we've just gone through a review of our programs, which is fantastic because the review process is quite long. You have lots of consultation with industry, with students, with staff, etc., to sort of formulate, what you think are the new core structures moving forward. Smart structures around that would be that you're actually building on all the fundamentals that you know are going to be long lasting, that people need, and then you actually within the course structures you're able to kind of nuance certain things. So you might replace automation of so social media automation when that may move out to something else that comes in. So I think we need to be we're agile at that level, but there's a deep kind of core level that we kind of deliver on across each iteration of our programs.
Sarah, did you have any particular skills that you found are lacking in a lot of graduates? Yeah,
interesting. Yeah, so look, at Campbell Arnott, we actually don't hire many graduates. And the reason for that is because we've got a really lean team, as I mentioned before, and I think it takes a lot of resource for us to train people up to the point where they can really contribute. The best ones that we've seen are those who have the skills, and Peter mentioned them. They know how to lead a project and they know how to problem solve. So it doesn't mean that they need to know all the answers, but they need to know how to find the answers. And really, at the end of the day, they're probably life skills and skills that you need as a graduate in no matter whichever discipline you're studying. So not unique to marketeers. But they would be ones I think that are generally lacking and that the strongest graduates come out with.
There's another question here. This is for David and Nicole. Do you involve industry in crafting the curriculum? How do you stay relevant or bridge the gap?
I'll let you go first, Nicole.
No. All right. I think I mentioned previously, when we do go through, we constantly consult with a marketing industry advisory board that we have, and they are leaders from different people from different companies, from advertising execs through to companies such as Sarah's, and so they come in with different perspectives of what they feel would serve them best from an industry perspective for the graduates that they want to see coming into their organisations, and talking about trends and what they can see is happening in the marketplace. As we previously just talked about, it's hard to continually embed that constantly within a program, but they're very much a part of the curriculum review process that we have. And then what we're doing is actually having longer term partnerships with those industry partners, where we're embedding them and coming in and actually having them as the basis for projects that we might have, or internship opportunities that we might have. That we'll do research projects with them, and then be able to distill that back into the classroom to show what's working, what's not working in different spaces. So we do a lot of involvement with industry at that level. David?
Yeah, so it's sort of similar in some respects. And ultimately, knowledge is based on the knowledge of the convener and the academic. So it's up to the individual academic who's teaching into advertising or marketing to retain their own knowledge and to build their own knowledge. So we are theoretically hard on the basis that we understand what we're teaching. So that generally, the general requirement is an academic qualification, and sometimes, not always, work in industry. So it can be a mixture. But it's getting harder. So normally an entry-level academic now is required to have a doctorate or a PhD. So that's a different route in terms of, it's an applied knowledge route. It doesn't necessarily mean knowledge of industry practice. How we keep the discipline current is we used to have a course advisory panel. Unfortunately, that's sort of gone west, partly due to funding and support. And again, it's, there's, the lovely thing about how we set it up originally was that it came about because industry volunteered their time. So I'm very conscious that industry is very generous and very supportive and happy and willing to support development of curriculum. I think the back end of how we shape that and how we feed that into curriculum development is we've got a number of issues we need to work through, which I highlighted before, and it's to do with this process of actually changing curriculum, updating curriculum. It's a slow process, and I'd love the day for us to be more agile in that process.
What indicatively, David, what would be the timeline from getting input from, say, some sort of advisory board of industry to be able to go through that and get the academic rigour to be able to apply that to a course or curriculum?
Well, we're probably similar at both UQ and Swinburne. From my understanding, it would probably be at least 12 months because of the various processes in terms of, you'd have to arrange meetings, you have an academic panel, you'd have an industry academic panel, you'd have to put through a submission, and then it's got to go through course advisory committees. And like I say, you've got to respect. I guess it's like industry, we're all hierarchical in some respects, but there's steps to the approvals process. Mm-hmm. And at every stage, it has to be checked for quality and academic rigour, I suppose, and whether it's actually a usable course. So if there's a proposed change, then it would need to be considered as whether it's actually a valuable implementation, because there's a cost. The university has to bear the cost to change. So at the moment, everything's on hold. We can't change anything at the moment, partly because of cost savings. But we can still. So that's sort of where we are.
Now, the reason I ask is there's another question here, and it goes to the pace of change, because they say, what new learnings are needed for the faculty in the near future to provide relevant education to students post-COVID-19, especially in terms of technology, content, things like that. And to Sarah's point that the COVID-19 has really accelerated a lot of the issues, and I think Nicole and David, you also, and Peter, all of you brought this up, that COVID-19 is not necessarily about a major change, but certainly accelerating a lot of the changes that we're already seeing. How are we able to be more agile, but at the same time still maintain that rigour? Anyone? Or is that too tough a question?
It's incumbent upon industry to lean into this. I still think, COVID is fast-tracking a lot of things, but I think there'll be life beyond COVID, and there'll be some bumps along the way. There'll be a lot of human tragedy, but we'll learn a lot through it as well. I think as David said, moving industry, asking universities to change what has been in place for 100 years is a tough thing, and there's been a lot of efforts through the Media Federation, through organisations such as mine, and and institutions such as yours to try and bring that together. I think there's a lot of sharing at the between industry and the people doing the teaching. So I think that the only way to fast track it is to embed course modules into organisations such as mine, or organisations that you know are going to be here tomorrow, such as the Googles, the Adobes, the Salesforces, for people who have an appetite for more the platform side of the business. That is going to future-proof a lot of careers, and there's a big appetite on the side of industry to help expedite that.
Look, we're going to have to leave it there. Well, there's still more questions. So what I'm going to propose is that I'll share the questions with the panel. And if you would like to respond to those in writing, we'll send that to all the participants.
Absolutely.
But finally, before I just wrap up, I'd just like to thank Sarah Ryan from Campbell Arnott, Nicole Hartley from University of Queensland, Peter Horgan from Omnicom Media Group, and David Reid from Swinburne University. Thank you very much for joining the panel and sharing your thoughts and insights. It's been a terrific conversation.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Very much.
Look, as I said at the start, there will be recordings made available. It'll go out to all of the people that have registered. And whether you've attended or not, thank you to those that have attended. But it's worthwhile subscribing to Trinity P3, because we'll keep you up to date with everything that we're doing. The other thing is, if anyone here is either looking for an industry mentor or knows of someone that could be using an industry mentor, register your interest with us. We've just kicked off the Trinity P3 Marketing Mentor Program with 100 industry professionals all offering their services as mentors. So it's just a matter of registering at trinityp3.com/marketing mentors. Put your details there and we'll be in touch. And I think this is a terrific initiative to really open up the opportunities of communication and learning from those in the industry to those that are either just entering or about to enter the industry. So thanks for that. Otherwise, thank you all for joining today. And for more information, you can contact us at Trinity P3. But again, thanks to the panel. It's been a terrific discussion. Have a great day.